Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. Today, I want to talk about the thing that has absorbed my life for the past, I don't know, there's 13 episodes, there's an hour each. I don't know, like a day and a half, 2 days. Like, I binge watched through Jessica Jones completely. Could not stop watching it. Phenomenal, phenomenal show. I want to talk about my personal opinions on it. I want to talk about some of the character development in it. I definitely want to talk about David Tennant as the Purple Man, because holy, just wow. So yes, starting from the very beginning here, spoiler alert. I'm going to be talking about some things that come up throughout the show. I'm going to try not to get into specifics because, to be 100% blunt, most of the specifics of the story are not really that important to what I want to talk about. But I will be giving away some pretty big um, uh, hints about and some really big events that happened throughout the show. So you have been warned. I will be talking about really, really big spoilers during this. So first things first, I want to kind of compare it to the first Marvel Netflix series that they had, which was Daredevil. If you guys remember, I made a thing like this after Daredevil. And my response on it was, overall, the series itself was really good. I didn't like the Daredevil aspects of it. Like, if it was a different character, I probably would have enjoyed it more for a number of reasons. Probably the two biggest of which were Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, and the writing of Daredevil himself. Um, and I'm going to rehash a little of this because it kind of brings into my opinions of Jessica Jones. So Daredevil in the comics was a very, like, the reason that he did what he did was he could tell when people were lying and stuff like that. And he was kind of an avatar of justice. He decided that, if people got away, he was going to punish them anyway. And that eventually turned into him being a costume superhero bent on the idea of dispensing justice. Um, and his motivations changed dramatically throughout the entire thing. But in the very early parts of his career, the idea behind it was, I have this ability and I'm going to use it to do what I think should happen. Um, the character of Daredevil in the Marvel uh, Netflix series was quite literally Batman. He was blind Batman. That's all he was blind Batman. Um, I don't think he actually said that, the line, "I'm the hero this city needs." But he said something very similar to it, where you get the idea that the reason he does this is he feels compelled because he has these abilities that he has no choice but to do it in order to serve the greater good, which was never a part of the Daredevil mythos, of this idea of, with great power comes great responsibility, with Spider-Man's thing. Daredevil wasn't, and that was one of the reasons why Spider-Man and Daredevil didn't always get along. Um, he was much closer to the Punisher, though not quite that extreme, than he was to the altruistic Spider-Man. And so that was something that really, really grated with me, because it was a defining feature of his character, was not that I'm the hero this city needs. No, he did a very similar job, but he did it for very much selfish reasons, as opposed to altruistic reasons, and that really changes the character. So anyway, and then the character of Vincent D'Onofrio is a phenomenal actor. I thought he was brilliant. However, the character of the Kingpin was not the character of the Kingpin from the comic books. Again, and that was my biggest issue with this. He was kind of whiny. He had very little self-control, as you could see. Like, he had literally almost no self-control throughout the entire thing. He did horrible things, and he did them 9 times out of 10 in fits of anger, or and things like that. And that wasn't something that was built in. He had massive mommy issues. None of those were built into character in the comic books. The Kingpin was a masterfully ingenious criminal that was able to get away with outright doing crime simply because he planned so well that he almost never got caught. He only got caught, I think, like once or twice in the comics, and he served very limited jail time. Like, he got out of jail having done his time and completely free and in the clear. So those are the things I didn't like about that. Go to Jessica Jones. I am not as familiar with the Jessica Jones comic books. I actually did a little bit of research after I watched, I think, the 2 or 3 episodes just to go, wow, this is so amazing. I want to see how much they changed. From my understanding, they actually stuck fairly close. Not like super, super, you could, take a fine tooth comb to it, but fairly close to the Alias comic book series that this was based on. It was really, really brilliantly done. They changed quite a few things because they would require introducing characters that didn't quite fit into this mythos. And introducing ideas that don't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that I was fine with. The overall character of Jessica Jones herself, again, I'm not as familiar with Jessica Jones, so I don't know how close, I think her name is Kristen Ritter, was to playing, the comic book Jessica Jones. But the Jessica Jones I saw on screen, I loved. She was so brilliant. You could see, I personally, I have a thing for tortured characters. Good guys that have something horrendous and horrible in their past that motivates everything that they do. My D&D characters all have this fatal flaw built into them based on an extremely traumatic experience in their childhood. I wonder where they get that from. So, yeah, I loved the idea that she had this past with the Purple Man, and that complete loss of control and everything really haunts her to this day. Like I thought that was portrayed brilliantly. I thought that the character of Jessica Jones, like she never stepped outside of her character. Like you sometimes will see if you adapt a character from one medium to another to make them, do something that you want in this new medium. Ever so often they'll do something that just doesn't make sense. Kind of like Daredevil and his whole "I am the hero this city needs." That completely outside of his character from the comic books. And it was really weird because he kind of flip-flopped. Jessica Jones didn't. Like everything she did made perfect sense as far as her character was concerned, or at least from what I saw. Everything from how she treated Luke Cage to how she interacted with the Purple Man, what happened when she realized she was immune to his control, like all of those things really fit in very, very well with how the character was kind of developed and portrayed to us. I really loved the growth of the character. That's one of the things that is my favorite thing about watching a television series over a movie is character growth is so much more profound over, a 13 or 26 episode arc than it is over, a 2 or 3 hour movie. You can't get the character development in that. And the way that her character evolved and grew throughout the series was brilliant. She was this very acerbic, almost uncaring character in the very beginning, to the point where she was very, very monetary focused, very self-focused, didn't really care about anyone else beyond Trish. And the idea of her sacrificing herself or anything like she intends to do later in the series never would have happened. Ever. Just, it was so completely outside of her character at that point. And you watch her take the steps to the point where when Kilgrave invites her over to his house, or her house actually, and she has that after she leaves for a little bit and has that conversation with Triss, where she's actually thinking about staying with him to try and turn him into a good person, knowing that she would be completely giving up her own life. That's something that in the first episode she never would have dealt with. But after dealing with everything else up until that point, with Luke Cage and Hope and everything, like it was just brilliant. I've mentioned Luke a lot of times. Luke Cage was my favorite character in that, beyond the Purple Man, because I have massive, massive issues. He was so awesome. I'm more familiar with Luke Cage than I am with Jessica Jones, simply because I'm a big fan of Iron Fist, and he and Iron Fist were heroes for hire. And so I did a little bit of research into him before. Um, he was such an awesome character. Again, I'm not as familiar with his backstory. I know that he eventually gets married. Another spoiler alert. He eventually gets married to Jessica Jones in the comic books. I don't know if they're going to do that in the MCU. Um, but yeah, he made sense. That very typical anti-hero archetype was kind of embodied in the character, and I loved his fight scenes, especially the one in the beginning where Jessica comes in to try and save him, and he just sits there and is like pop, pow, boom, and he's completely calm as people are trying to kick the crap out of him. He's just like boom, boom. I thought that was such an amazing fight scene, and it really adequately described how a character with unbreakable skin would deal and super strength would deal with a situation like that. Like he was 100% in no way in danger in that situation. There was nothing they could do to hurt him. So he was very calm, collected. He knew what he was doing and did exactly what he needed to do to get out of it. It was so brilliant. Um, I'm really excited to see where the Luke Cage series goes, especially with a little kind of cliffhanger at the end. Again, spoiler alert, uh, where he kind of disappears before Jessica can really confer with him. So I'm really interested to find out what happens in the Luke Cage series, which is apparently the next one coming out. Um, I want to see Jessica and Luke interact more because the chemistry of the actors themselves is really good. The characters themselves work together really, really well. And they both have this really unique, defining moment in their past that kind of changes who they are. Luke has a period of tragedy where, he lost his wife. And that changes a person, something like that. And so and then he's forced to blow up his bar. That was a defining moment for him. And so that will kind of define how his character grows over the Luke Cage story. Jessica Jones did horrendous, horrible things that she has to learn to live with. Like, they're both these really cool, broken characters that I thought were just brilliantly portrayed by both of the actors. Like, just mind-bogglingly brilliant. And then we get to David Tennant. Those of you that don't know, I was an actor at one point. I actually got paid to do it. So I was a professional actor. I was an extra. But they paid me $10 an hour, so I was a professional actor. And some of my improvised dialogue made it into the movie. So that's pretty, yeah. So anyway, my history in acting was I played the bad guy, always. Other than a brief stint as Lieutenant Cable in South Pacific, I played Judd in. Let's see, I played Judd in Oklahoma. I played Javert in Les Mis. I played Bernardo in West Side Story. Like, I just constantly was the bad guy, and I died all the time. Like, that was the running joke. Is anytime I was in a show, we knew I was going to die in it somewhere. I died. That's what I did. So I kind of have an affinity. I don't know, affiliation. I don't know what the word is. I have a connection to actors that play bad guys, and I like villains simply because playing a villain is a very interesting experience. Their motivations to make a believable villain, they actually have to have significantly better character development than a hero, because people will naturally identify with a hero just because they want them to win. People won't identify with a villain, and so to make them identifiable and to make them someone that you truly fear or truly want to lose, the characters have to find some way to identify with a portion of them that they don't like. And so portraying a villainous character is so much fun because if you get a good one, they're incredibly complex characters. The character of the Purple Man, wow, complete psychopathy. Absolutely no empathy for other people, not understanding. Like he's a psychopath, like, defined, but when you look at all the other things that happened in his life and how they kind of they didn't really add because he was crazy from birth. Is what it's looking like, because even when he gets approached at the end after convincing again, more spoiler alerts everywhere, after he convinces his mother to kill herself, um, you can tell that he harbored these psychopathic tendencies since childhood. And even though his parents, who, by the way, were also really messed up, even though his parents were trying to help him, he was, again, very self focused, very much completely unable to understand empathy to any degree, completely unable to understand that anyone else could have feelings other than him. Um, so these events that happened throughout his life kind of tempered his psychopathy and turned him into the truly evil creature that you meet in the series. And he was just so brilliant. Like everything that David Tennant did as Kilgrave was brilliantly built into, like everything he did was 100% defined by self needs. Everything he did, and even when he started trying to stop using his powers for a little bit to make things work and to try and win over Jessica, you could see that he actually, like, he started doing technically altruistic things, and Jessica even convinced him to save some people by using his powers for good. You could see that even when all that stuff happened, all of it was still focused on him. He was only doing it to fulfill his own needs. He didn't actually care about anyone else because none of them mattered. They weren't him. So just a brilliant character. I would have loved to be able to play a character like that because, again, so far, I am a very hyper empathetic person. I read people remarkably well, and because of that, and because of my training as an actor and things like that, I find it very easy to empathize and sympathize with people because I can put myself into their situation fairly often, and with my own issues and the massive amount of just crazy, horrible shit that's happened in my life. um, I have the ability to kind of empathize readily. And seeing a character that's completely, not even just incapable, but completely to the point where he doesn't care that he's incapable of feeling empathy for another person. Like that is so far outside of who I am that I would love to play a character like that. And I think David Tennant did it so brilliantly. Like he is seriously one of the creepiest villains I have ever seen. Um, I was a little bit, not really upset. I was a little bit disappointed when at the end they didn't actually turn him purple. They just had little purpley veins going through. I was kind of hoping they, because in the for those of you who don't know, the reason he's called the Purple Man in the comic books is he actually is purple. Um, he got, if I remember correctly, he got dumped into a vat of chemicals or something like that. The other thing I was less than thrilled about was them explaining everything away by he having the ability to infect people with a virus, which isn't actually what happened in the comic books. It was actually pheromones that he used to kind of put people into a suggestive state where they would do anything that he said. So it's a very minor thing, but they had to do it in order to give Jessica Jones the ability to resist him. They basically said that she built up an immunity. What happened in the comic books, she gets a resistance to him in the comic books too, but what happened was she got rendered unconscious for like months. The X-Men picked her up, and Jean Grey, while she was healing her, put in a mental switch for her to be able to basically she could turn it on. She had to turn it on, but she could turn it on and be completely immune to his abilities because in the comic books he controlled her for like 8 months and made her do horrendous, horrible things. But this was actually later in her career. She'd actually already been a costume superhero before the Purple Man did what he did to her. So yeah, like I said, some slight variations, and I was less than thrilled. Like I hate, like, the comic books already had a really good explanation as to why, how he did what he did, and they just had to change it to be a virus because viruses are the big thing now. And I didn't really like that. I think the pheromone aspect could have still been used, um, and due to the fact that they don't have, like, X-Men don't exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for legal reasons. I can totally understand uh, why they did it. I just think it was a little bit unnecessary. I think something that would block pheromone, or eventually developing a resistance to these particular pheromones, I don't think is beyond the realm of reason. So, I mean, such a minor concern with an otherwise amazing series. Yeah. So anyway, if you haven't seen it already, I'm really sorry for spoiling all of the main points for you. If you have seen it, go watch it again, because dear God, was that brilliant. I may try and do a spoiler free review of it later, but I was just so blown away with how awesome it was that I had to talk about all the really cool stuff. So yeah. Anyway, that is all for me today. I'm actually fairly certain that after I'm done with this and get this uploaded, I'm going to do another one that's spoiler free. That will be much shorter. Um, so yeah, if you're watching this and you enjoyed it as much as I did, let me know who your favorite character was, or favorite actor, in the comments below. Um, if you haven't watched it and I've just spoiled it for you, feel free to bitch and moan in the comments. I probably would feel very little pity because I said the word spoilers through this entire thing. So yeah. And if you've kind of skipped to the end to try and skip all the spoilers, I am making a version of this that's spoiler free, or spoiler free as I can be. So anyway, that's all for me today. I will see you guys later today with another video that doesn't have all these spoilers. All right, bye bye.